Today for 135, again starting an untitled project. This time you should have this file 1.3.5 documenting design. Again, it has this like little Fusion logo, so we need to right click this. We need to create Fusion design, and now it starts that process. So we can go ahead and close. And then we're going to wait for this to pop up. It just says the folder's been updated. We'll refresh. And then when we refresh, we get the same file, but it has the little cube icon. That just means that we're able to edit it in Fusion. So we're going to double click this to open that file. When we do, we get this piece. This is a crank arm that's going to be used in the project we've been working on with like little slider blocks. So this crank arm, right now we have the 3D model. We don't need to make this 3D model, but we are going to document that design. So we've been doing this a bit with our drawing file. So we're going to hit design in the top left, go down to our drawing workscape, and we're going to make a drawing from a design because we already have the object we're wanting to document. Click from design. From your templates, you should have a Hoban size B template. So you're going to click that. We're going to hit OK. And now it's created another file at the top here. This one's untitled because this is just a drawing file. Let this load in. And as this loads, so now we have our block continuing to load. We should get an option to place a view. Whoa, there we go. So now we have placing the base view. So we're just going to click this somewhere. I'll just put it down here somewhere in the bottom left. Our scale in this case, we can leave at 1 to 2. Looking at this, I don't want the front view because that's going to be like the side profile. I want to see the view with the object. So I'm going to look at the top view. So now I can see all the holes going along that object because that's going to be more interesting for our design. So that's our base view in this case. Right now it's pretty small. If we look at the size of the paper, we probably want this to be a bit larger. So looking at this scale 1 to 2, that just means our object is half the size as it is in reality if we were to print this. So let's make this 1 to 1. So now this would print true to life if we printed this on size B paper. So that looks good for now. We can leave everything else as it is, hit OK. All of this is what we've done before. So now we have the object here. We also have this title block down at the bottom. So we've not paid much attention to this. So we're going to start doing that now. You should have your name here, designed by your name. Teacher will be me, obviously. It's going to pull in the date, and it's going to pull in a sheet number, in this case just one sheet because we've not done multi-sheet drawings yet. And then a file name, it pulls from the file that you originally drafted this from. So this is called 135 documenting design. And then it also has the scale on the side. So it tells us that this object is scaled 1 to 1. So 1 inch on this paper would be 1 inch in real life. So like we've done before, we're going to need to dimension this object. Before that, though, we're going to create a projected view. So in the top left, we hit projected view. We click our base view. We're going to go over to the right to create the right side view. And then we're going to go up and make our isometric view up here and hit our check mark so that it brings it in. This view becomes very messy if it's a wireframe though. So this is never wireframe. So we need to right click this view, hit edit. And then in the style, we're going to click this one on the side that is just shaded. If you hover over it, it'll give you that tooltip and says it's shaded. So that's what we want. And we'll hit close. So now we have our shaded isometric, and then we have our front view and our right view of the object. Looking in at the right view, we have a lot of extra lines as it's looking across all of these webbings that are going down the object. So to start adding dimensions to this object, if we did it as it is on here, so if I add in a dimension line, so I can do that by clicking this dimension button at the top, or if you hover over it, tells you the tooltip or the shortcut is just the letter D. So if I hit the letter D, I'm in that tool now. I'm going to pick the two outer corners here and drag it up. So it tells me that this is 0.24 inches wide. And then similarly, I'm going to grab the center of the far right circle, and then I'm going to grab the center of the far left circle. So from hole to hole, this is 4.5 inches long. So those are kind of like our overarching lengths. If I were to start to try to dimension all these other small pieces though, for example, we wanted to talk about how thick this ribbing would be, being 0.04, or talking about the spacing between all these other pieces of geometry, it would get really messy. So we're not going to add those in this way. Instead, we're going to add something called a detailed view. So to get our detailed view, first, we're not going to need this right view since it's so small, it's actually not going to be useful to us since we could only get the one dimension. So we're just going to delete that view. And instead, up here in the top left, we have this create panel. We have a few different views we can do. So first, we're going to do a section view. So looking at the picture, what we're going to do with this shows, we're going to cut a little line and we're going to just take a section of this. So we're going to pick the object we want a section view of, in this case, our base view. And now we get some lines with this little arrow. So we're going to pick a starting point and then an end point where we're going to cut through this object. So to kind of pick those points, I'm just going to go somewhere up here. I want to kind of intersect right about here in the middle of one of these circles. So I'll go here and I'll go straight down, and then I'll hit the check mark. So now I'm creating a section view that is cutting off this object at that point. So I can now drag this over here, click again to kind of place that view. And the scale, I don't want this to be a 1-to-1 scale. I want my section view to be larger. So I'm going to say 4-to-1 compared to our parent block. So it means this is 4 times larger than our original drawing was. We can hit OK. Right now we have visible edges on instead of our wireframe. So we're going to hit OK. And now it shows us a section view of our object. So that's going to be better for us to dimension off of so we can see what's actually going on. Similarly, we're going to do another create, and instead of a section view, a detail view. So we're going to pick this circle, or I guess we're going to start with this object, and we're going to pick this center point of our object. So the second circle in, and we're just going to bring a radius out that gets just beyond the edge of our block. So in doing that, we can click, and now we get this view to play. So if we zoom back out, I'm going to place this up here at the top. Again, place it where you want, hit OK, and now it creates another detail view. So that one's only a 2-to-1 spacing or a scale, so we can edit that view. And let's make that one 4-to-1 as well. And close. And now it automatically updates and tells us that's a 4-to-1 scale. When we have this issue where our text for this section view has gone down into our title block. So if I click it once, I select it, and then I can click again and drag that over here. So now I have my section AA and my detail B, and then on the original diagram it shows section or detail B came from here, and section AA came from these two capital A points, and it shows us what direction we're looking at from that cut. So we have those two detail views. Now we can more appropriately dimension. So adding a dimension line, first thing we should also add on this large object is this outer radius. So with this outer radius, now we have the length of the object, and we have the radius that the end is curved around because it has that same center point. So now that's everything we need to add for our main object. Looking over here at our section view, there are a lot of different lines we need to dimension. So first we can grab, like we did before, our full width. We can call that 0.24. Beyond that, we need the distance from this point to this point, that one being 0.03. We need the distance from this point to this point, being 0.05. and then we need the width of this center kind of rib being 0.08 inches. So in doing that, we've dimensioned how far down this first rib goes. We've dimensioned how far down the deeper channel is, and we know how wide the entire object is. So again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vertical lines. And we talked about before, we would need 5 dimensions to fully constrain that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensions right now. So we need to add one more dimension into this. So we can grab from here to here. Say that this one is also 0.05. All of our numbers are kind of clustered over top of one another. So if I hit escape to get out of my dimensioning tool, click this once, and then I can drag that number and put it in the middle. Click once, that number is already in the middle. Click once, and then I can drag that number. Same thing, this 0.03, I'm just going to take outside of this. Maybe I'll do the same with this 0.05. Now just space these out a little bit better so it's not as cluttered. Additionally, you could also put the numbers down at the bottom, but this will work for what we're doing. And then in addition to the widths here, we also need to talk about the radius that these are kind of curved at. So we'll have another dimension, and if we go near this curve, we might start to get a center point. So I can grab that center point. Ooh, that's not giving us what we want. So let's hit escape. Looking at our dimension tool, if we click that, we have a radius dimension. So maybe if we grab that, then we can click this, the curve of this radius, and then pull it out. So the radius is 0.01. So now we have all of our dimensions for our section view. Looking at our detail view, doing the same thing. We would want a center mark on these circles. We need to dimension a diameter for one of these circles. So I'll just pick this far right one. We need the diameter of the hole. We need the diameter of the rib on the outside of that hole. And then we can do, we could do the diameters of this and this side. We already have this diameter down here. So rather than giving those two diameters, instead we're going to dimension the thickness of this object. So to do that, normal dimensions, or hitting letter D, we need to talk about the spacing between these holes. So first we'll grab this and this. So we can see there's a 0.50 spacing between each of these holes. We can grab these two lines. So now it's showing us the thickness of this object. We'll call that 0.04 inches. So that's how thick all these ribs are. We need to dimension the center point of these like little triangular indents. So we can talk about the spacing between each triangle. It's also 0.5. And then we can talk about the spacing between the center of that triangle and the center of any of these holes. So now what this is telling us is that these holes are 0.5 inches apart, and then these little triangle indents are exactly between them since they're 0.25 inches away from the center of any circle. We've only dimensioned these few circles, and there's more on here. So we're going to add some indicators telling us that this is a continuing dimension. It is repeating down the line. So to do that, at the top we have text, click text. We're going to add in some text. First click creates a box. Second click ends the box. We can just put that wherever. And to say that this spacing is repeating we're going to call it typical spacing. We can just put TYP for short. So typical spacing in parentheses. And if you didn't make your text block long enough, you can change that now so that it all goes to one line. We hit enter, or rather not enter, we hit close over here on the right. And now we have this indicator saying typical spacing. So we can just attach that right underneath our 0.5 distance between each of our circles. And I can do the same thing if I just select this, hit Control C, and then Control V. It creates a copy, and I can put that up here at the top as well. So now my typical spacing applies to both of those, and then I'm going to continue to dimension this. Something else that's a typical spacing we need to call out is the diameter of these circles, because that diameter is the same for all of them. I don't want to dimension every single circle. I'm just going to say, hey, this dimension is typical. So to do that, again, text, add text. We'll do a little bit different this time. So instead of typical spacing, we can just do TYP in parentheses, hit close, and we can leave that right here. You can select it, hold Control, hit the letter C, hold Control, hit the letter V, and we can make a copy. We're going to put it right there. So now, oh, not what I wanted. So now we know that the diameter of these circles are the same all the way down the line. The spacing between everything is the same all the way down the line. And we know the thickness of all of these ribs is 0.04 inches, at least on our outer edge. So we also need to dimension this inner edge. So all these ribs, we'll grab again, pull it out, and it says that it's 0.04 as well. Let's grab this number and put it somewhere a little bit more convenient, or rather, let's grab this dimension and pull it down. Give ourselves some room. I'll put that detail view call out over here. So moving forward, other dimensions we need to call out is the spacing between the radius of this triangle. So we have some curve down and some curve back up. So we need to have that distance between all of those curves. So if we go in, we can find the center point of where that curve starts. We're going to dimension to the center point of this curve. It tells us it's 0.05. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. If we kind of move our mouse around the curve, the center point, the center mark of that curve shows. Then we'll pull that up as well. And hit escape so I can click this number and drag it over. And we'll do it like that. So now it's telling us the distance between where these curves start. Beyond that, we need to dimension the center rib as well. It'll likely be the same, but you just have to make sure you call out all dimensions that are possible. So now we know the ribs for the center, the ribs that are in this like X shape. We know the inner diameter of the hole and the outer diameter of the raised rib for that hole. So now we need to talk about the radii that are in each of these curves. So for our dimension tool, go to our radius dimension for that fillet that was applied to all of these. So we're going to get this curve. We'll have it going to the right, the inner curve. And then we'll go with these inner curves as well, if it'll give me that geometry. No, it will not. Well, that's unfortunate. So we'll just grab this curve up here then. So now I have the radius of each of those curves as they move around. But again, I don't want to dimension every single one of these, so I need to add the typical marker. So I'm going to hit escape. So I'm not using a tool. Go over here, grab this typical, Control C, Control V, so I can make a copy. and I'm going to add those copies of typical to all of these radiuses. You see mine's kind of like jumping over. It's like trying to lock into something. If I zoom in though, it completely disappears. There it goes. If we zoom in, we get more control of where we're placing this. So now this is telling us that the radius of all these is a typical radius, so I don't have to dimension every single one of these corners. It's just telling us that's a repeating pattern for this radius. So what we've done, we have our detail view. So we've added a bit more. Before, when we've done drawings, we've just had the front, right, top views, like the orthographic views, along with an isometric. Now we're getting these detail views where we can get into more detail of what these dimensions are. So at this point, this is an untitled drawing still. So up here in the top left, you're going to hit save. When you go to save, it's going to automatically pull in the name of that file that you started with, but it's going to call it a drawing at the end. And that's what we want. So you guys are going to save that to your student file so that I can go look at it later. And we can see up here at the top, now that it is named, and we have this icon and it's version 1. So this is a completed file. From here, we're going to hit File and go down to Print. And maybe it'll let me print. Let's try that again. File, Print. Strange, the window's disappearing. One more time. All right, last time. I think the recording software was messing with it. So if I hit File, go to Print, I get this window. You're going to print to the student makerspace. You might need to mess with your orientation, so look at this preview, and it should be correct. If it looks like this, that means it's going to print in the wrong orientation, so we're going to go up here and just flip that orientation. Should be on fit to paper, everything else is fine, and then you're going to hit the print button so that your document will print out. And that's the thing you're going to turn into me. Bring me that piece of paper of your printed design file.